Hello. This video is made and meant to step through for those volunteers who are page managers, the differences in their capabilities versus others within the internal ABR website. It's not meant to go through anything in the public or external site. That's there's a discussion of that available in the volunteer introduction video. But this one's just specific to the page managers. So I'm signed in here as a page manager, and I'm going to look at my options that I have. This is the volunteer video I just mentioned that discusses the external site and some of the internal site from the perspective of a new volunteer. This is the page manager video we're doing right now. This is where you can go in and check your personal information that ABR has and keep it up to date. Your name, address, phone number, emails, that sort of thing. We'll look at how to search for Brittany's later on, but right now we're starting off in the internal homepage. And we'll start with the option to submit a dog. In terms of submitting and updating or editing dogs, there are only two roles that can do that. One is the page manager, and the other is the volunteer editor. Not a volunteer, but the volunteer editor. And in both cases, they can make changes beyond their region with the idea that maybe someone is on vacation and they need to get some information put in, and they can back up another page manager. They can back up another volunteer editor in another region, just help out. But it also means that, they could make a mistake and that sort of thing can happen, or somebody might want to just, I don't know, play a trick on somebody and try to get in the wrong area and do that sort of thing. But whatever a volunteer editor does in any region, if they go in a different region or they go in their own region, and they submit a dog or they change a dog, make an edit to a dog. And the same thing's true with the photo editors when they go in and change an image. Once they say submit or update, and they've completed that change, then immediately an email is sent off to the page manager for that particular region to notify them instantaneously that someone has made a change, and it has the time and date and who made the change into what dog and what dog number, that sort of thing. So everything is all changes are documented, whether it's a volunteer editor or a page manager or a photo editor. But specifically, if they're not a page manager, the page manager gets an email notification of that change. So if someone's in the wrong region, somebody make a change that you'd like to take a look at, you'll get an email that tells you that you've got something to consider. Also, there is a history area, which I'll show you in a second, which is basically a log file that logs in every change by anyone, including page managers, that has happened to a dog's record. So there is also a detailed listing of every change that's made to the dog's record. And ultimately, there's this entire system. Should somebody screw up a number of dogs' records for some reason, accidentally or otherwise, the entire system is currently being backed up every day. It could conceivably be backed up every hour, but that's quite a bit. In that event, you can always recover the entire system, all the files, all the programs, and all the pages, internal and external, all recovered back 1 day or 2 days or 3 or 10 or 20 days, whatever it is, should there have been some kind of problem. You'll lose the work for that period of time, but it is always backed up in one location, and then there is another backup at another location. So you're not going to lose anything other than, at worst case, a day's work. In any event, that's just the way it works. It also works that the changes are not sent through from a volunteer editor does not submit a pending change for the page manager to review and approve prior to it actually affecting the dog's record. Everyone makes changes directly to everyone who can make changes. Volunteer editor, page manager, photo editor makes changes directly to the record, and then the page manager is notified immediately after the fact to go check it if they care to, or just be aware that that work's been done. So they're working in a sense on live information. The other thing to remember is that there is no way to delete a dog from the system. So don't go putting in, as have happened in the previous system, there were an awful lot of dogs in there that said test dog or test puppy or something like that, where someone was just testing the system. The system isn't meant to be tested. It's already been tested. It works. So if you put in a dog, there is no routine for you or anyone else, even the administrator, to delete that dog. So the good news is we don't lose a dog. Bad news is somebody uses it for tests. I mean, just trust that it works, and don't put in a test dog, because there's no way to get them out. So it just clutters things up and isn't necessary. Anyway, we're going to submit a dog here, and we'll put them in, let's say we're going to go into the West area, West region, and it will bring up the form for adding a dog. And I'm not going to go through here and type, type in everything, because it's all kind of normal information, except to say a few things. The date here, you can go through this little business here with the calendar. It's often just simpler just to go in and type it in, because if you want to put in a date that's 2 months from this, you got to move over. It's a little more cumbersome here. Just type it in. The do not post, like you had before, just puts up that little flag, do not post, in the pending dogs area. And by the way, any dog that's added must go in to the area you identified, like the Western region, but they have to go in as pending and as active. There's no option for that. You get down here, the date of birth. The system calculates the age based on the date of birth you put in here. Now, if you have, this is new, if you have the actual date of birth, then you just, again, do this, or it's simpler to type it in. If you don't know the actual, real specific date of birth, then indicate that by typing or by clicking the estimated and then putting in your best guesstimate. If the dog appears to be 2 years old, then put in something in April of 2017, and just do your best. But make sure that you're telling people that is estimated. And things in red here reflect required fields, by the way. Whatever you put in, let's say we put in, I'll just type in one here, 05 20 2011. Okay, so that goes in, and the system tells you it's a senior. Every single time the dog's record appears on a public page or an internal page, the system recalculates, and maybe a young dog becomes an adult, because you just went over the stage where it uses the same brackets for puppy and youth and adult and senior. But it calculates every single time the system brings it up to display it. The chips information, where it came from, select dogs and cats. All this is the same. You look up the volunteers here, foster volunteers, put in the state, and then the information here. The adoption date and the adoption pending date, don't do anything more than put in the effectively marketing text that says adoption pending on such and such a date. It doesn't change the status of any kind for the dog. It has to be done separately, or the station, the region, or whatever. It simply puts in those marketing words on the dog's page. Later on, the adopter's name and address. And because it's being added, it has to be active. That's of course. And at the end of both the ad and the editing routines, you can simply save that information, and it's immediately updated. And if it would happen to be a volunteer editor, before you go, by the time you can go check it, that there will be an email in the page manager's email inbox, and for adding a dog in the state coordinator's inbox, as I recall. You also have the option to save and preview, which will bring up a screen, the dog's page. You'll immediately see what you've just done. And you can go change something if you want, just go back into the edit routine. So anyway, that's the way that works. I'm going to go, I can go backwards this way. I believe I can. Yep. And now if you want to view or, well, let's do this. View or update a dog, you can go look in the, let's say we're going to look in the Midwest. Now you can jump around into different regions. Maybe you're the West page manager, but you want the person in the Midwest is asking you to help him out because he's on a vacation, let's say. Well, you can go in and make those changes, but you know they'll be notified that there's been a change made, and they can see who's been basically touching their information, and you can also see it in history records. But we're just going to go and we'll step in here and in this case pretend we're making an update. And here we go. Well, like I said, this is test information here. It looks like something that MJ was testing and putting in a dog. You'll notice one thing I forgot, I wasn't thinking to mention, but once the system goes live, the numbering scheme for the dogs will start at 10,000 here. As you can see with MJ under the new system, where you had up to some 6,000 and something dogs before this new numbering scheme, so you know that the dog was added after the new system, after the new software was implemented. Simply by the dog's number, 10,000 and such will tell you that it was added in this under this new system. If the number's below 10,000, it's going to be a dog that was added before. And things like actual, and that will tell you, for example, in Gus, it will tell you that where it says actual date of birth, it may or may not be actual on somebody from in the previous system because there wasn't the distinction then. But in the new system, people putting in a new dog will be able to specify whether it's an actual date of birth or an estimated date of birth. And you'll see that, and knowing that the number is above 10,000, let's say like here, that really is an actual date of birth, or at least they believed it to be. And so the calculations beyond that are in relation to that. In any event, in the edit mode, all of these for Page Manager, you have 3 buttons here to look at. You have the edit, which we'll go into, and this simply ends up being the same information displayed the same way as adding a dog, except that it'll have all the information from the dog's particular information. Now, when you go down through it, you have the option here to change the region or station. Only the Page Manager can do that. And because we're working with what you might consider live information, a volunteer editor makes a change, it goes immediately into the dog's records, and you're notified that that change was made, and you can go check it or change the change if you wish. But they're unable to move a dog from pending to public or from Midwest to West. They're unable to do that. Only a Page Manager can make that change. So this is available to you on the volunteer editor version of this edit page. They don't have that option. And the other thing is in the status, you have the option to do these different fields. Again, the volunteer editor does, and no one else has the ability to change that. So although I don't know that this is all that meaningful anymore, we left it as it was, but I suspect that the status isn't real meaningful anymore because a lot of those statuses are reflected in the pending up here, or in the station. But those 2 things, you're the only one that can change them. And then the other information here, you have the same option to save it or save it and preview your changes, whichever way you want to do that. Then just jumping back to that same dog, Gus, we just looked at the edit option. Then the history option here is going to show us, hope it shows us a bunch of stuff. Well, like I said, there's a bunch of fussing around in here. This is a volunteer editor test person. That's just a name we made up for testing purposes. But if someone had edited it, anyone, it could be Page Manager, it could be a volunteer editor. It won't say their particular role, but it'll say their name here. and they added an image or they changed it to adopted. Or you can see that it went from West pending to West, and then over here they moved it to something to Midwest pending. This is just us playing around and testing things. But you see the city locations have changed. Contacts didn't change. But this is a history of every single thing that happens to this dog. And so you can track how we went through the system. You can also check and make sure the right people are making the right changes. So if there's an error in terms of who's messing with the information, it'll show up here. And no one has the ability to delete these things. Even the programmer doesn't. It's just not programmed into the system. You can't delete a dog. You also can't delete this history, or this. It's basically a log file. Expanded does more than the previous history in the previous system. And then the last thing is images. This you want to do however you wish to do it. We've left the option here for volunteer editor and page manager to put in pictures themselves, up to 6 pictures. Does this move? No, it doesn't. The pictures are numbered 1 through 6, and they go in number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. It's the way they track in the layout for the dog. And then you can simply go in here and you can go look, get a file, find it. Well, this is a video. This is a different folder, but you find it, select it, open it. That picture show up here. You can actually do some cropping and adjusting of the size of the picture, and then it'll say save, or I forgot what the option is. But you can put up to 6 pictures in there. We did this also so when someone first puts a dog in, should they have a picture handy, they can put one in there so that you can see an image of the dog should you choose to run your pages in your region that way. And I guess I would, because I like to look through at the pending dogs and see what the dog looks like, because actually right now I am looking for a second dog. I've got one Brit, but he would like to have a pal to play with. So it saves time. It makes for less contacting the coordinator or calling them and interrupting them or sending them an email just to get a picture. If you put at least one picture in there, then if you're looking for one that's big or little, you can see that right away, and it'll save some communications and save some time. That's why we left it in there. In any event, that's the way the editing works. And going back to the internal homepage, which is where we came from, there's also a page in here we added, which simply for people that are new to ABR, it is a simple page showing the roles people. It's going to need a little more updating, but the role for what a volunteer is, well, that's the default role for anyone who's just volunteered for ABR. They go in as a volunteer editor, what they do, what things they can change, and so forth, and down through all the different areas, including the website administrator who can change most things on the entire site. So that's new. Go back. For someone who, for example, when someone fills out the volunteer application, and when Diane Kindler approves it, then the system sends out an email which, among other things, says, go look for these volunteer documents that you need to download and sign and send back to Diane. Here are those 2 contracts. It could be that there's other documents that need to go in here later on. We'll find out over time, but that's where they find them. They have access from a different direction. And I don't know, it sounds like it don't use the transport request very much anymore, but that was put in here. That form's right here if you want to use it. And then what else do we have? Oh, the searching for the Brits. The password reset and log out are pretty obvious. But if you're searching for trying to find a dog, this is a lot like before, except it has some extra things in it now that you can do a little bit more. And it will bring this page up, and we will search. Now, these little circles are where extra information comes up. This is like before. If you put in the dog's ID, dog number, then you already know the dog, and so it skips everything else. And then everything else is, all the different parameters if you're looking for a dog in a particular state or is adopted to a particular state. And then down here at the end, there is a choice of report formats. There's enough information or more information for each dog that can be displayed on a screen in a decent fashion. So we split the information up, and you have a choice of 2 different kinds of reports to look for when you're searching for a dog. We're going to put in my dog, and we will say the first form that has colors and genders and such, and we will go searching for a dog then called Captain, now called Cooper. In any event, here he is, and so this shows some of the dog's information. He happens to be a dog. We don't know his age, so this is estimated. Then you can select it, and you go and you get the dog's records, just regular dogs page. And this is my Michael had him down as Captain. I now call him Cooper, but he's one good dog. And you can look at his information, and you will see in this case, pending in the West. This hasn't been messed with except here. I guess I changed something. In any event, you can see that these first 3 things were live information because I got him from Michael, and and he's in Poulsbo now. He was in Salt Lake City, and here's me and all my information. And so this is me and Cooper. So that's a good look at what the history looks like. In any event, let's see. Let's back up to the search here. And let's just we'll put in Cooper. Now that same dog won't show up because in this system he was called Captain, but we'll do the other report. It's more location and date oriented. And you're going to find, as soon as it comes back, this test site is relatively slow. In any event, here are all the dogs that have been in a system named Cooper. Apparently there are 39 entries. Let's show a little more. Let's show them all on one page. So they're there, and now you can select the dogs. One of the things you can do here that's kind of nice is you can look at these arrows, and any of these, in fact, I think they're all the columns, except for this column, but you can search by state. This is increasing, or you can do reverse search state, or search on a foster person, and go this way. You can search on any of these fields. I should say sort on any of these fields that easily. So it's kind of nice. And there you have all the dogs. So that's the way that works. And the other thing is it resets your password and log out, all of which is pretty straightforward. So I hope this is helpful, and enjoy.